Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this meeting of the Planning Committee on Thursday, the 9th of December. My name is Councillor Caleb Tomlinson. I'm the chair of the committee. I represent the people of Banbury Ridge West. Councillor Mal Donoghue is the vice chair. The meeting's been recorded and the stream will be live on YouTube. The web address for this is displayed on the agenda for the meeting. If you're attending the meeting because you're a member of the public who has registered to speak, please note you have a time limit of 4 minutes. You will be timed, and I will confirm when 4 minutes runs out. You should then finish. Please come forward to the microphone here and press the speak button. Introduce yourself, and then you'll have 4 minutes. Okay, if you're moving around the building, you must wear a face mask. It is mandatory. All right, we're not anticipating a fire alarm drill, but if the alarm does go off, we leave through the fire exits here and meet on the grassy verge. If I can now ask everyone to introduce themselves, we will start with Jodie on my left.
Jodie Ingram, Senior Solicitor.
Good evening, I'm Stephen Brown, Head of Development Management.
Good evening, Debbie Roberts, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Will Adams, I represent Middlefirth in Penwitham.
Good evening, Councillor Mal Donoghue, Vice Chair and represent Seven Stars Ward.
Good evening, Councillor James Flannery, Middlefirth, Penwitham.
Good evening, Gareth Watson, Count Green and Gregson Lane.
Good evening, Chris Lomax, Walton Dale East.
Good evening, Councillor Claire Hunter, Banbury Bridge East.
Good evening, Councillor Caroline Moon. I represent residents in Buckshall, Worden.
I'm Damien Breverton, Walton Dale West.
Good evening, Emma Shepherd, Planning Consultant.
Good evening, Chris Sowerby, Planning Officer.
Good evening, John Hesketh, represent Longton and Hutton West.
Good evening, Councillor Harry Hancock, Broad Oak, Penwitham.
Good evening, Mary Green, Councillor for Moss Side and Midge Hall.
Charlotte Lynch, Democratic Services Officer.
Right, good evening everyone, thank you. I have apologies for absence from Councillors Phil Smith and Councillor Barry Yates, who are being substituted by Councillor Bretherton and Councillor Mullinor. Okay, so we have apologies from Councillor Peter Mullinor, okay. Do we have any declarations of interest this evening? Councillor Bill Evans.
Thank you, Chair. Can I declare a personal interest in agenda item 8? I'll be speaking on it later, but I know the owner, not the applicant, the owner. Thank you.
Okay, duly noted. Right, agenda item number 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of November 2021. If you've all read them, if you were at the meeting, you can vote on them. If you weren't, you need to abstain. I've read them and I agree with them. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Flannery and Councillor Hesketh and Councillor Hancock. Thank you very much. Okay, can we all go to the vote on those, please? Okay, so we have 8 yes, 4 abstain. Okay, thanks for that. And agenda number 5 this evening, minutes of the meeting held on the 29th of November 2021. I have also read those and agree with them. I've got a seconder, Councillor Hesketh. If you weren't at the meeting, abstain. If you were, vote accordingly, please. Okay, thanks very much for that. Item number 6, appeal decisions, Stephen Brown.
Yes, Chair, there are no appeals on this occasion. Thank you.
which means we're doing a good job, really, doesn't it? Good. Okay, item number 7 this evening. Debbie Roberts, land to the east of Reynard Close, Longton.
Thank you, Chair. You probably heard this several times, but I'll go over it again. Reynard Close site is a central section of allocated site V. The western part's already developed, that's Reynard's Close and Auburn Avenue. The eastern side is undeveloped. To the south, we've got agricultural land with Hall Pool, which runs along the southern boundary. It's not a main river line at this point. And to the north is residential on Rymer Grove and into Old School Drive. Site V is part of a 3.5 hectare housing allocation of V, M and X, and in combination they support development of 211 dwellings over 5 years. It's fairly level agricultural land bordered with trees and hedges. There's TPO in the northeast corner. It abuts Longton settlement boundary, and it's a short distance from Longton's district centre, which is shown on the screen with a yellow star. The retail area is the yellow star. The same site in 2013, which shows the western site undeveloped. Now that's Auburn Avenue and Reynard Close, from which access comes off tonight. We had an earlier scheme deferred for 33 units. That was amended to 14 units, but deferred again by members to allow public consultation. So the final proposal is 14 new dwellings with associated works, access from Reynard Close, a small spur of 2 houses off Auburn Avenue. Inside the site, we've got a T-shaped road with cul-de-sacs at either end. There is garage or off-road parking to adopted standards, and each property would have an electric vehicle charging point secured by condition. Permission was granted in October 2017 for improvement of Longton Hall Court Junction, which is roughly where the pointer is. That would enable all 3 sites. Now, we've had some past objection to a lack of permeability from Chapel Lane through into this site, but we would argue that that permeability provides a rat run once all 3 sites are complete, which would be a problem. Lancashire County Council agree, and they don't object to that disconnection or to lack of cycleways from one to the other. Reynard's Close still isn't adopted, but it would be as part of this if it was approved, and access arrangements are considered acceptable. Okay, the revised 14 dwelling site is 3 complementary house types, 2 and 3 storey detached in a mix of red brick and render. The applicant has met with residents and officers as requested by committee, and as a result the height across the site is now between 8.5 and 9.5 metres. It was 10.6 metres, so much reduced and less prominent roof forms. Design reflects that of the wider estate, and we're on a very low density of 9 dwellings per hectare. That's reduced following member concerns with the 33 unit scheme. Spatial separation within and outside the site accords to adopted standards, and there have been several changes to house types and orientation to reflect the circumstances of each adjacent property. They're all noted in your report. Some of the garages have been removed from some plots, and where they've been retained, they've been changed, but I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. Removal of rear lights where appropriate, and the site is proposed as a self-build scheme. In terms of obligations, it's under the threshold for affordable housing, so there won't be any on this site. There is minimal public open space on the site, but we've got a decent financial contribution towards the upgrade of Longton playing fields and School Lanes playground. Existing landscaping will be retained where possible, but we've got conditions to require environmental mitigation and to keep the properties away from Hall Pool. Okay, following residents' meeting, the house types were amended as per the slide, and this is the front elevation. The new versions are on the left, and the old ones are on the right-hand side. So for house type 1, we've got a less dominant gable section on the left, loss of the 3rd floor windows on this section, and change of material overall. Loss of glazed 2nd and 3rd floor front elevations. House type 2, we've got more traditional design with reduced glazing and less obvious materials, And house type 3 has been reduced from 3 stories to 2, more relevant design and a softer roof form. The same goes for the rear elevations, new ones on the left, old ones on the right. House type 1, windows have been removed from the 3rd floor and we've got a change in materials. House type 2 is a complete material change and some plots of the Velux windows removed to the rear elevation. And house type 3 is reduced from 3 to 2 stories, no Velux is on the rear and again a less dominant roof form. The same applies to the garages, the new ones on the left, the old ones on the right. As you can see, I have tried to get them in context. The old ones are much higher, much more dominant roof form. The old ones were 3 metres at the eaves and 6.3, I beg your pardon, metres at the ridge. Now they're 2.5 metres at the ridge, at the eaves, and 5.2 at the ridge, and they're all to be constructed in buff stone rather than buff and sand. Just a few photographs for context. This is the existing street scene, large 2- and 3-storey units in a similar traditional modern design. Proposal complements the wider area well, I think. A view of the main site facing west from Rymer Grove, which is the cul-de-sac in the north, that's the houses on the right. And the same view from Rymer Grove, but an older Google image. It just gives you a better idea of the 3 sites together. You can't really see it now, this hedgerow's grown up. And the eastern side of the proposal site, again, viewed from Rymer Grove in the north. The proposed access way will be through from Reynards Close, 2 properties, on a good wide carriageway with pavement access. The pavements would extend all the way around the edge of the site. As requested by members, the applicant met residents and officers to discuss a way forward, and you should have an email from the agent, I believe, detailing the process we've gone through. Formal public consultation closed today, but to catch any posts that might come in or any late representation, we'd like to extend it until tomorrow and delegate that decision to the chair. That's already delegated anyway for Section 106 signing, so it's not going to add anything to it. If anything comes in the meantime that really changes officers' opinion, then we'll bring it back to committee. We've got an update sheet that you should have had this afternoon, but in summary, there are 3 items. The applicant wishes to replace one plan for another. There's no real change to it other than this annotation on there which refers to boundary heights being from adjacent neighbours' land levels rather than the site levels. There's a very slight difference in land level. That's at the request of residents. The update sheet also reports 2 late letters of representation. First is an objection to the self-build nature of the scheme and the subsequent loss of financial obligations towards public infrastructure. Planning legislation allows for self-build schemes, and there are quite a few successful schemes across the borough and across the country. There's a 1900 dwelling scheme in Oxford, and they're all self-builds. In fact, the government's Help to Build scheme from April this year is backed by funding to support self-build initiatives. The SIL regs also then provide a mechanism whereby self-builders can claim SIL exemption. Both self-build and SIL exemption are perfectly lawful and neither should be a reason for refusal. All the other financial obligations that we've asked for have been met based on the number of houses and in accordance with adopted policy. The second objection is a repeat of objections received from the same person throughout the process with regards to environmental impact. At each stage of the process, the council's ecologists have confirmed that they're happy with the situation subject to mitigatory conditions, and they're all included in the report. So representation for early schemes hasn't been carried forward, but for information, we've had 2 this time, and there were about 105 last time with 9 letters of support. The fact that only 2 have shows how much the work's been put in by the developer and residents, to be fair to them. There are no statutory objections, subject to conditions from statutory bodies. So just to balance, The issue isn't whether this site is suitable for housing development. It's already been, that assessment's been made and found sound by the local plan. The principle of development subject to all material considerations being acceptable is therefore established. The determination tonight is whether those material considerations are acceptable, and in our opinion, they are. This proposal is policy compliant, and we would recommend approval with the decision delegated to the Director, Chair and Vice Chair for successful completion of both public consultation tomorrow and signing of a Section 106 agreement for public open space contribution. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for a detailed presentation, Debbie. Thank you for that. Right, I don't have any registered speakers on this application. Don't have any ward members on this application, and I don't have the applicant or the agent on this application, so I will open straight up to committee. Councillor Hesketh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I think that we ought to thank the local residents and the officers for the patience that's been given to this application. It's been a long, drawn-out application. There's been a great deal of effort put into it. But at the end of the day, as Debbie says, this site is sort of compliant with our plans and so forth. So, as I say, we cannot we can't suit everyone. We've got to accept that. But tonight, I feel that we've come to a point where we've got to make a decision. I'm a great supporter also on the application of the design and security. I think that we should do more of security and design in this council. I'm rather dubious as far as building development being done by individuals and so forth, self-build. I've nothing against the process. The only thing being, from time to time with these applications, it can be rather a drawn-out process, and we can, from time to time, have applications for change of design and so forth. But those would come to us later on as time goes on. So we have to decide on what we're going to do tonight as far as this application is concerned. I think it is compliant with our national and local development plan, and I would like to go along with the recommendation of the officers as we have on the application tonight. So I will go with, with the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. So that's a proposal for approval. Councillor Flannery.
Thanks, Chair. Well, it looks like everyone's been effectively gone to a neutral position on this, because this was debated long and hard, and it has changed, as you can see. Chronologically, it's gone from 33 down to 14. But the good thing is, but I'm just going to qualify that in a minute, is that there aren't no residents objecting now. So it looks like the developer has done what we asked them to do, which is meet with the residents and come to an agreement, which is good. I would also like to be perfectly honest, see people come and say how that went, because when there's a feeling or objection, people are, quick to come here and say that. And what we do as a committee, we always factor that in to influence our decisions, because that's what we're here to do, because we're always fair in that way. So it looks like the developer's done their job. I've got no objection to self-build opportunities, because it gives people the chance to go and live a dream and do it in different ways rather than the standard house building types which you get in lots of areas. So on the basis that it's policy compliant and it's part of the local development plan, it's being allocated for housing, I'm more than happy to second the proposal for approval. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks for that, Councillor Flannery. So I have a seconder for approval. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with the previous two speakers. I think we should comment on the fact, the collaboration between residents, developer and officers should be celebrated. It's something that I know that this committee asks for a lot, and I think it does set an example to any future developer that is the way that we want to see it. That should be celebrated, as I say. So I wanted to say that. I also want to say that the email that we received today also suggested that it was because of this committee's decision that it actually led to a summer party between residents. And I think that's something that we should also celebrate in terms of doing that. But in all seriousness, Chair, I think it's good to see this collaboration and this work that's gone on between different parties, and we've come to a point now where I think the mitigations that the residents are after have been accepted, and we can move forward. So I'm happy to support the approval, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Do we have any other proposals? Okay, so the proposal for approval is from Councillor Hesketh, seconded by Councillor Flannery. So we haven't got any other proposals, so can we go for the vote? Oh, Jodie, would you like to explain what the vote is, or do you not need to?
I don't think I need to.
Jolly good. Let's all go to the vote then, please.
Members have unanimously approved the application in respect of land to the east of Reynard Close in Longton, and that is proved subject to a delegated decision to the Director of Planning and Development in consultation with Chair and Vice Chair upon successful completion of public consultation, and also subject to a legal agreement to secure public open space.
Okay, thanks for that, Jodie. And this is what happens when applicants actually get together and speak with residents. It goes from deferral to approval. Wonderful. All right, item number 8 is number 2, Maplewood Close of Leyland. If Emma would like to introduce this application.
Good evening, everybody. This is a detached dwelling on a residential cul-de-sac within the existing built-up area. The proposal seeks to change the use from a C3 dwelling house to a C2 residential institution for up to 3 children aged 8 to 17. This is a photograph of the front elevation of the property. There are no external alterations to the property itself to facilitate the use, other than the removal of the garden wall at the bottom of the screen here to facilitate an additional parking space. As part of the submission, a Good Neighbours Charter, a noise management plan and a complaints procedure was submitted. Lancashire County Council Highways confirmed that the amended site layout that was submitted included 3 spaces and a pedestrian access would be acceptable. They therefore concluded there was a negligible impact on highway safety and capacity, and recommended a condition ensuring that the amended site layout is provided prior to the use commencing. Environmental Health also reviewed the application and concluded no objections subject to conditions, noise management plan to be implemented in full, the bedrooms to be fitted with acoustic glazing, and the provision of an electric vehicle point. In summary, there were 15 objections and 52 names on a petition, which have all been summarised in the report. It is to be noted as part of the submission that all the young people who live at the property will be going to school, college or an alternative educational facility. There is proposed to be 3 to 4 members of staff on site at any one time, and there'll be shift changeovers occurring at 8 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock and 10 o'clock at night. This actually just shows the proposed floor plans and the amended site layout that was submitted. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Emma. Right, we do have a registered speaker in objection to this application. It is a Michelle Prescott. Okay, if you'd like to come to the table, press the speak button, introduce yourself, and you have 4 minutes, okay?
Everyone, I'm Michelle Prescott. I live at number 1 Maple Close, the brown house that was adjacent to the property that you've just seen. I'm attending on behalf of the residents of the cul-de-sac to share some of our concerns around this being changed to an institutional setting. Our main concerns are parking, privacy, noise, and the impact of the home on our already elderly residents in the street that have got ailing health, etc. I didn't realise I only had 4 minutes to speak, so I have condensed some of my notes down. So as I've just said, we live in a cul-de-sac of 14 houses, mixed between houses and bungalows. The actual property itself is a house which overlooks 2 bungalows on the opposite side, so they feel that their privacy will be impinged by overlooking children looking out the windows, etc. They're concerned by the fact that we live in a cul-de-sac, and I don't know if any of the photographs I've submitted have entered the pack that shows some of the challenges of parking already on the cul-de-sac. In the turning bay at the bottom, it's always full, and on the adjacent road above at the top of the property, we already have overflow parking from the Maplewood Close and also from West Paddock, so that obviously has a huge impact. Living on the corner of the property and the properties opposite already have problems getting in and out of their driveways due to the parking issues and the lack of visuals as you're coming out of the drives. There's worried about the noise from the traffic coming and going at different times of the day. As I've already said, a lot of the residents are a lot older and do go to bed earlier in the evening. And some of those, well, a number of those bungalows have commented about headlights and doors slamming, etc., from carers leaving and having conversations in the drive opposite. It isn't a wide road, unlike some of the properties, some of the other residential properties locally that are on Fox Lane and on Dunkirk Lane, which have a wider free flow access to and from the property. This would involve people either turning around in the mouth of the junction or in the parking bay at the bottom. A number of residents have actually identified about the privacy and overlooking. From my personal perspective, the house actually adjoins the side of our property, and we use our back door as our main entrance in and out, and the side window of the said property actually overlooks our walkway in, and there's going to be increased traffic in and out of there, and there's also going to be increased people accessing the house on multiple different times of the day, including people that aren't permanent members of staff or bank staff and recovery staff. So there's going to be an increased number of people accessing this quiet street and this neighbourhood street where we do have vulnerable elderly people. We've got one particular lady across the road that gets woken up and gets very distressed due to her Alzheimer's, and I have spoke to the family and they're happy for me to share this with you, that she gets quite upset if there's new noises and husband has to go and investigate them. So those noises at 10 o'clock after they've gone to bed, or noises in the day, husband has to go and investigate to reassure her. So there's quite a lot of impact on that. We've also got, obviously, mobility around the area. We already have problems with people parking on the pavement and causing increased risk of people having to walk on the road to pass these vehicles, but also trip hazards, the fact that the pavements are also being damaged. Okay, sorry, thank you. So also other things, and I've talked about the traffic and you've sort of got a hint on that. Things like the waste truck, when they come to collect down the street, they actually have to reverse up the street. They can't turn around in the street, but they have been known not to be able to access the street and have to walk down to collect the bins, etc. So it's risk to other people. And the noise one is from the home on Fox Lane, which is not very far away. We can hear the children in that property, in my property on Maplewood Close. Can I say thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak today? And thank you for listening to our concerns. And I hope that that's reflected a little bit more of the the story behind some of the comments that the residents on Maplewood have made. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for speaking, Michelle. Right, I have members not on the committee wishing to speak. Neighbouring ward councillor, Councillor Michael Green. No? Okay. Councillor Bill Evans, please.
Thank you, Chair. How long have I got?
You have got 4 minutes, Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chair.
No more, but you can have less if you want.
No. Applications like this, Chair, always fascinate me. A family with 6 children could move into this property tomorrow. Mum and Dad could spend every night down at the pub, leaving the children to their own devices, and there's nothing anybody can do anything about it. As could a family move in with lots of vehicles. At least the applicant is removing the wall at the front and having a parking spaces for all the vehicles in the front garden, effectively. So I think it's great. If you look at the representations, the list of representations there, the vast majority of them aren't material planning considerations. I mean, depreciation of house value, how do they know? You know, just potential for vandalism and abusive behaviour. Well, they've got that potential now from anybody. It's not just 3 supervised children that are going to do it. So I don't understand that one. When we look at other things that are mentioned, insufficient parking and business use, well, LCC haven't got a problem with it, and they're the Highways Authority. Business use, well, nobody bothered when there was a day nursery at number 4, next door but one, and there must have been comings and goings from parents, you know, all day, dropping the children off and picking them up again. Nobody bothered about that, so it's a bit double standards, this. They've also mentioned a lack of privacy. But what's different to an ordinary household? If not, ordinary children moved in here, they'd still look out the windows and, you know, play in the garden. So the idea of this is to integrate these children into as normal a surrounding as possible. They'll go to school Monday to Friday daytime, same as everybody else. And we should be welcoming a facility like this to help these young people to lead a normal and as happy a life as possible. These young people have probably had a tough time as it is. They could come from a variety of backgrounds. The parents could have died. They could have come from an abusive background. The parents might be disabled, not be able to look after them. They could have been abandoned. I once dealt with a 16-year-old who'd gone to Runcher College in the morning. When she got home at night, she couldn't get in, and her mum and dad had emigrated to Australia and left her. And she ended up in a facility like this because there was nothing else. She wasn't disruptive, never been in trouble or anything. So, you know, the list goes on what could be wrong. I've been a councillor now for 22 years and I've seen a lot of these C2 applications, and it's always the same. The neighbours are always up in arms about them, but when they're approved and they're up and running, we don't hear from them again. I can't remember this council ever getting any complaints about any of them, anywhere in the borough. There's too much scaremongering, to be perfectly honest. My personal opinion is the law's wrong here. We should be asking the children, do they really want to go and live in an area with neighbours like this? We should be welcoming them. Thanks for listening to me tonight, Chair and Committee. I urge you to approve this application for a much needed facility. Thank you.
You have 45 seconds left, Councillor Evans.
Right, let me think of something. I'm only joking.
Okay, I have a written representation from our Mayor, Councillor Jane Bell, which states, some weeks ago, I was contacted by a resident about this change from a C3 dwelling to C2 residential institution use. I phoned the planning officer who contacted the resident to clarify some of the issues raised and the safeguarding measures proposed. However, this did not resolve the complaint and the application was called into committee. As Mayor, I did not have the time to become involved, and my co-councillor, Mal Donoghue, is the Vice Chair of Planning, so he could not become involved. and so I asked Councillor Michael Green to look into the matter on behalf of the residents. This change of use will provide specialist care for 3 very special children who cannot be cared for at home. I have a granddaughter who is autistic. Fortunately, she can be cared for by our family. For much of my working life, I have worked with young people with varying degrees of disability, some of whom died way before their time. It is so very, very important that everyone in this world has the best life they can have, and these children need the care and love that will be provided in this home. Objecting on the grounds of parking and potential antisocial behaviour is exactly that. It is presumption and not proven. If this house was on the open market and was purchased by a family with a troublemaking past with 7 children, this council could do nothing. I fully support this application. These could be anyone's children. They could even be yours. I urge you to support the officer's recommendation to approve the application with conditions. God bless you all and a Merry Christmas. Jane Bell. Could we have Vicky Wilden, the applicant, please? Okay, Vicky, if you press the speak button and you have 4 minutes to make your representations, okay?
Thank you very much for listening to what I'm going to be saying. Northridge Care Group provides 24-hour residential care to children and young people between 10 and 17 with varying needs. We are listening to the local concerns, and I appreciate that the worries that they may have in regards to this proposal. Approximately 70% of children in care initially come into care through no fault of their own, being exploited, family breakdowns, parental issues, and suffering trauma and abuse. There has been a significant fall in the number of children in care over the last 30 years, but the numbers have rose in the UK between 2015 and 2020. 2020, there were 80,080 children looked after in the UK, and this is still increasing. Following the deaths of several children known to social services, health and police authorities, Victoria Climbier, Peter Connolly, and most recently, Arthur Hughes, there have been long-awaited changes for the UK that to look at the way some of our most vulnerable young people and children are cared for. These is even more of a requirement for the quality children's homes due to the pressure of the above, but also on COVID, which has placed immense pressure on vulnerable families. Not all these children have been placed in children's homes. Some were placed with other family members, foster care, but a large number have been placed within residential care services, children's homes or residential special schools. Although we are a relatively new company in its infancy, it's going to be managed by a very experienced management team. The manager, Lee, and myself have over 50 years direct experience working in multiple homes with various needs of the young people. The home will provide a 24-hour care to a maximum of 3 young people between 10 and 17 of both genders, and will be staffed 24 hours a day, and the manager will be based Monday to Friday 9 to 5. The young people will be attending the local schools and clubs and will join in the community pursuits and clubs depending on their likes. The home will be managed and run like any other family home. There'll be no signs stating it's a children's home. If the young people behave negatively, they will be managed like any other family, and consequence for their behaviours will be given. Things taken away from them, early bedtimes, grounding, etc. This will be expected, like any family, to help with chores around the house, but the children will be professionally managed and the business managed with Ofsted. So unlike a normal home with unruly children, if the home causes a nuisance, Ofsted can act. We want to work with the residents, and we hope that this community will also help these children, and we encourage residents to bring us any concerns so we can try and resolve them. Our experience that most children in the homes do not wish to bring attention to themselves, and certainly our staff do not wish to bring attention to the home. We simply wish to help the children. You can never be sure who will move into an empty house near you, whether they have 2 cars or 6, unruly children or perfect angels, or a party house. I do believe that a house has previously been used as a cannabis farm. Conflicts with the local residents, professionals can occur in any case, but we work hard to integrate into the community and will do all we can to make this happen. It is not in our interest to have conflicts which endanger either the children or those in the area. We believe that it is a great place to have this home. It is a business, but also a home for these children. We thank the officers for the time and consideration, and the Highways Authority for confirming they would consider the use would not be harmful to the highway safety and for existing residents. We hope you can support the recommendations and are happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Vicky. I'd just like to know where we can find an angelic child these days. Right, okay, thanks very much for your presentation. You can switch mic, if you can just sanitise the desk. Thanks very much. All right, I'll open up to committee. Councillor John Hesketh, please.
No, Prescott. No. Right. Yeah, we're right now. Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I agree with Councillor Bell and Councillor Evans in connection with this application, Mr. Chairman. Like Councillor Evans, I've been on the council for a number of years, and we've had applications similar to this, and they've all blended into the community, Mr. Chairman. So I will go along with approval, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hesketh, thank you very much for that. So I've got a proposal for approval. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. This is when I read this one, it kind of took me back because it's something close to my heart. It's an area where I worked previously. Some of my best times in my professional life have been in a similar setting, not too far away from here. I think when we look at the representations that are against this application, I think Councillor Evans has already put it a lot better than I could. In terms of, I don't really see any of them being appropriate. In terms of the what was raised this evening, the privacy issue, for me, that's no different to the previous residents or potential new ones. Parking and highways issues, LCC have said it's compliant and there's no issues there. Noise, again, as Councillor Evans said, what happens if it's a large family with 4 or 5 cars? It could be even worse than what could be if this is accepted tonight. I think Vicky has put it very well. These vulnerable children deserve better. There's cases in the news that we hear about all too often, unfortunately. Particularly those who suffer with physical and psychological abuse. These people and these children, they need our support. Because of the report, thank you, by the way, to Emma for the detailed report, and because of the conditions in the report, Chair, I'm very happy to support Councillor Hesketh's motion for approval. What I will say finally is let's welcome these children, show them love, and give them the best chance of a better future. Chair, I'm very proud that South Ribble could give them the chance to do that, and this committee, in my mind, should unanimously approve it to support those children. Thank you.
Okay, as usual, Councillor Adams, very well put. Councillor Moon.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, a lot of what I've said has probably been said very nicely by Councillor Evans, particularly like the point you made, Councillor Evans, like perhaps we should ask the children if they want to live in this community. And what Will's just said, says a lot of it. I think the point I want to raise, Chair, is time and again we're getting these applications. I think it doesn't help, does it, when the planning law refers to it as a residential institution. This is a person's home. And I think for residents, when you see residential institution, it's not helpful. I think time and again we get these applications and we get the stereotypes of children that are unknown. What is it going to be? What's going to happen? We've all sat here and heard it. We also get things in these like acoustic glazing. It drives me insane. My home does not have acoustic glazing. I have very noisy boys. So, you know, we have a home for children who are, you know, children looked after, and we read acoustic glazing. I just think a lot needs to change way beyond us and this planning committee, but a lot really does need to change because it annoys me to read that. Many people on this committee will know, and I'm going to say this hopefully more for the residents than anything else. A lot of people in this committee will know that I and my family, my husband, have been fostering children for the last 15 years. We live in a very standard residential area and we are approved to look after 3 children from birth to 18 of both gender and have done 3 children, 0 to 18. In that time, there has been no problems within my home, no problems that have affected my neighbours. There hasn't been children on the rampage. We have looked after children who have criminal past and criminal present when they came to our home. Children who, had they not come to our home, would have been in bail hostile environments and came to our home awaiting resolution for their behaviour. They didn't rampage through the community. They didn't cause our neighbours any issues. They were cared for, they were nurtured, and quite frankly, Chair, they were nurtured within that community. And I guess what I want to say, aside from this planning really, is to the neighbours, talk to Vicky. Talk to Vicky, who has come here and said they have a lot of experience, they know what they're doing, they're going to manage this environment. In my experience, neighbours can be intrinsic in changing a child's life. They can show children what it means to be in a community, to be part of something, to be wanted and loved and nurtured. And I strongly believe if children live with hostility, they can grow up to be hostile. And reading these comments in this application and listening to Michelle, it just concerns me. Instead of having a brilliant opportunity here to welcome some children into a community and love them and nurture them and put them on a different path, we could have children who come to a community and are treated with hostility. And it would be such a shame, Chair, because it to me looks like a good application. Thanks for putting up with me. Thank you.
And Councillor Moon, that's why he's such a good councillor. Councillor Lomax.
Children looked after are ordinary children. They just need love and boundaries. It's as simple as that. They need praise for good behaviour. I know this because I worked in a children's home in Leyland for 13 years. I would tell a lie. I moved on to another children's home in Preston. It started off as an institution. It was a 24-bedded unit, and that is an institution. By the time it was shut, and I did want it shut, actually, we were down to keeping 8 young people. 3 is manageable, quite easy, with boundaries, with love. I fully support this application with it, and I will be voting for it.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Lomax. Councillor Bretherton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to echo the comments made by Councillor Bill Evans and Councillor Bell, and also the other committee members here tonight that have spoken in favour of this application. And I agree totally with what's been said, and I will be fully supporting this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bretherton. Councillor Flannery.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks to Emma for the first report. Well done for your first report, Emma. Every time an application like this comes to committee, residents do have concerns, Michelle. So it's normal for you to come here and express them the way you did. But listening to councillors Moon, Adams, Lomax, etc., and Councillor Bell's citation from our chair, I hope what happens, Michelle, is that you do what I've done tonight, because I'm not as articulate or experienced or knowledgeable in this field as those councillors are. But it warms my heart when I hear them speak so passionately about the care of children in our borough. So please take on board the reasons why we're saying this, because the experience in the room is significant. You won't have a bad experience. The kids who've been dealt a hard deal in life, that's the reality of it. They don't want to have this deal, but that's the way it is. So I would urge you to embrace the decision tonight and embrace the children when they arrive. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thanks, Councillor Planny. Michelle, I know you keep raising your hand, but you've presented and you don't have the right to come back, I'm afraid. Okay. Oh. Okay. Okay, thank you. Right, okay. Do we have any other proposals from members of the committee? No? Okay, can we then go to the vote? The vote is, Jodie, it's for approval. That's the recommendation of the officer, Emma.
Approval with conditions.
Okay, so if we can all go to the vote, please.
Members have unanimously approved the application in respect of 2 Maplewood Close, and that is approved subject to the conditions within the report.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Jodie. That's the end of this item. If you'd like to leave now, you're quite welcome to. Please, if you can put masks on when you're moving around the building, thank you. We'll move on to item number 9. It's 84 Huff Lane, Leyland. Chris Sowerby.
Thank you, Chair. The application relates to an end terrace premise which fronts onto Huff Lane within the Leyland Town Centre, as designated under Policy E3 in the South Ribble Local Plan. The premise currently operates as a desserts cafe with a servery and takeaway on the ground floor and a dining area on the first floor. A variety of other commercial premises are present along Huff Lane. Dorothy Avenue runs along the eastern side of the premise with an office present to the rear and residential properties on the eastern side of the road. Planning permission is sought to change the use of the premise from a cafe and restaurant to a mixed-use restaurant and hot food takeaway. The proposal includes a ventilation duct to the rear, which would be lower than the roof ridge, so you would not be able to see it from Huff Lane. There are no objections to the proposal from any statutory consultees, with the proposed use being acceptable in policy terms within the town centre. For these reasons and those contained within the report, the application is recommended for approval. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Chris. Very detailed report. Bit lengthy for my liking, but it just, I still can't get my head around why this has to come to committee. I just can't. I know there's some kind of legal reason. I just can't see what the legal reason is. They can serve food now, and they have to apply to serve a different kind of food.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the cafe use allows for a degree of hot food. There is a spectrum, and then sooner or later you reach a tipping point where it goes from a cafe to a hot food takeaway, then that triggers the need for it to come to planning committee.
Okay. So what do you class as a Subway then? Is that hot food or cold food?
That's actually under retail.
Not if you're eating it Not if you're sat inside eating it, it's not. All right, let's open it to committee because I think I'm going to lose tonight. Councillor Will Adams.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. Again, I share your comments regarding the need for it to come here, but here we are. And I'm very happy with the application. Thanks to Chris for the report, and I'm very happy to propose approval. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Hesketh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think in this COVID era, it is a good idea to have takeaways rather than sit down, and I will go along with it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. Do we have any other proposals? We don't have any other proposals. We can take this as a block vote, can we? It's for approval. Okay, Jodie, that's... can you quickly read out the...
Members have unanimously approved the application in respect of 84 Huff Lane, and that's approved subject to conditions.
Brilliant. Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for attending this evening. Unless there's some disaster, this is the last one of the year, and I wish you all a very happy, peaceful Christmas. Councillor Flannery, please keep off that strong beer, please. Thanks for your attendance, everyone. If we can leave in a very fast manner with our face masks on, please.